Hello together and welcome to my channel. So I've been thinking about YouTube, and I've been thinking that I may have taken the wrong approach to YouTube so far, because I always tried to first write an article and make a really kind of pure and perfect video in which I kind of knew what I was talking about and had all the points and practiced it for several times, and then shot the video and then reviewed it 7 times to see if everything was really perfect and if I didn't miss one of the points or if I didn't say anything wrong. And just yesterday evening or this morning, yesterday I was really kind of how do you say, unmotivated to write on an article anymore. I was really unmotivated to work on this project, on this podcast that I wanted to work for these next 3 months. And so I started wondering why that is, because over the last couple of years I came to this conviction that there is always some reason for why you feel a certain feeling. Doesn't necessarily have to be a good reason, but there is a reason. And so I started wondering why am I so unmotivated, and I thought it means that I'm doing something wrong. And so this morning I kind of thought, yeah, maybe I'm using YouTube the wrong way. So maybe it's not about making, or not only, the only way to use it to make kind of a as close to perfect presentation as you can manage. Maybe I want to use it more because these are the people that I admire on YouTube, are the people that kind of use it as a basically as a tool to enhance having a conversation. So it's like somebody says something, makes a video, and then other people can watch that video, and then they can respond either through comments or through a video of themselves. And through that, it's like a way to extend the dialogue. And so it's more about formulating what you think at the moment and then letting other people react to that with what they think in the moment. And then I can react back to that with what I think when I see their reaction. And so in that sense, it's like a tool to have a dialogue, just a different new way of having a dialogue than just a one-to-one dialogue. And so this morning I thought I want to try that, and so I got really excited to do it and also a bit scared, which I think this feeling means that it's actually a good idea to try it, that somehow the excitement means that I sense that there is something good in this, and I also sense that there is some danger, because I might say something that is wrong or that I have to take back later, that I will no longer agree with later, that I will think, how could I say this, or why did I say this, or other people may find it very offensive or upsetting or whatever. And so that's probably why I'm a bit nervous about it too, but I think I want to try using YouTube like this for some time and just see how it feels, because the other way that I was trying for the last 3 weeks, it just doesn't seem to go anywhere. It's like I work and work and work and work, and I don't get anywhere. I keep writing and rewriting these articles. And I think that's the right thing to do if you want to write an article, but maybe that's not the right way to use podcasting or YouTube. So I want to try this way of using it, and so I also want to say that this video is like, these are my thoughts at the moment. I don't want to claim that this is all true or that I'm all right about everything. These are just my thoughts in the moment, and so I would be interested in your reaction to this if you watch it, and if that's basically that. So what I'm really interested in or trying to do, like for a long time, like over 10 years, I have been really interested in philosophy and have been studying many different areas of philosophy, starting with religion and atheism, and then moving more to politics and society, and then economics, and then ethics. And so basically I am still, or I think I have always actually been interested in ethics. I want to understand what is good and what is evil and why. So that's the big thing that I want to understand, and that I also often think about. And so yesterday there was a video that captured my attention. I will put the link in the description. The video was about abortion. It was a doctor that used to perform a lot of abortions, that at some point realized that he thought what he was doing was actually really horrible, and so he had kind of a crisis, and then he stopped doing abortions, and then he also started to talk about his shift of perception, and it was a very interesting video. Made me think too, because I think abortion is really a difficult topic. So because there are so many things that come together, and so I want to do my best to formulate my own thoughts on this topic in this video, like my thoughts at the moment, and just try to put it out there and see what people think about it or how they react to it, and and see how people react to it, and then see how this way of using YouTube feels. So my thoughts to abortion currently are, like, there are a couple of them. So the first thing is, I find it problematic to have like an abortion just like that, like without a serious reason, because so that's one thought. Let's go into that. So I find that problematic because I don't think abortion should be just another way of contraception. I think that's really problematic. And I can't really say why, but I think it has to do with this notion that a human being is something special. And that's really interesting, because I kind of learned this just more recently from Jordan Peterson, that this notion that a human being has an innate value or is something special just because it is a human being and should be treated as something special, that this is actually a religious idea. Because to me, like, this always seemed to be kind of just self-evident. I didn't even question it. It was just, yes, well, of course a human being has innate value, so now we can think about what this means. So, for example, when I was thinking about ethics, I just kind of took this for granted. But what I learned from Jordan Peterson is that you don't have to take this for granted at all. And many people and many philosophies and many societies don't have this notion that a human being has an innate value, like, in them. This notion doesn't really exist. So yeah, if you take, for example, Nazi Germany or Stalinist Russia or Maoist China or North Korea right now, or any kind of horrible dictatorship kind of society, then this notion isn't around at all. It's just kind of the dictator or the state does whatever it wants, and the people at the bottom of society don't have any value at all. If they are in your way, then you can just remove them. And so, and what I also learned from Jordan Peterson is that this notion that a human being has an innate value is at the core of our society and also of our legal system. It's the whole idea that you have rights, that everybody should have the same, how do they say? Inalienable rights, like you can't take these rights away from a person. This idea is a religious idea, and our society is basically built on it. And if you start chipping away at that idea and chipping away at it and softening it up and kind of making it more or less fluid or questioning it, then that might be a very, very dangerous thing to do. And I actually believe that since I heard this, I really believe that, because the problem is, where is the boundary? Like, there is no boundary. So, and this already is happening, and it's a discussion to have. Like, I think you should be able to talk about anything, but I also came to think that it's really, really dangerous, and that while we should talk about it, we shouldn't kind of question it through our actions. I think this is and I know the slippery slope argument is kind of a difficult argument, because you can make that for anything, but still. So, because what happens is you say, okay, well, say you had sex and you got pregnant. And so if you now terminate the pregnancy within the first couple of weeks, like 1 or 2 or 3 weeks, then basically there is almost no baby there. It's like just a bunch of cells. And now it is a bunch of cells that would turn into a human being, but still, it's at the moment, it's just a bunch of cells, like, I don't know, like the size like this, like a pebble or something. And so you can't really say that this is very problematic, or at least I don't feel like it's very problematic. Some religious people feel that way, but I kind of don't. Like, just looking at it objectively, like, you have this thing, it's the size of like a pebble or a pea, and you remove it, and okay. But then you say, okay, well, I can also wait until it's a little bit bigger, and then it's a little bigger pebble, and then it has the size of a ping pong ball, and then like around the first trimester, the end of the first trimester, I think what I heard in this video, it has like the size of a fist, like. So then you have a potential human being the size of your fist in the uterus of a woman, and then you say, well, that's still small enough so that you can have an abortion. So okay, but then this doctor talked about how you do a second trimester abortion, and what you basically do, or I mean, I think nowadays more abortions are made like hormonally, so you take some hormones that make your body abort the pregnancy. But the way back then, how he did it, was you have this big iron clamp, and after you suck out the fluid from the pregnancy, then you go in with the clamp, and you kind of feel around until you can grab an arm or a leg of the baby, and then you rip it out. And then you have one leg, like small leg, and then you rip the other leg out, and the arm, and the other arm, and the spine, and the skull, and then you have to feel around if there is anything left, because you have to take everything out, else the woman will have like how do you call this, like I don't know the word in English, like a piece of material within her body that doesn't belong there, because then it's no longer a pregnancy, then it's just maybe a piece of bone or a piece of something, of tissue, and then she will have like a infection and a sepsis, and she can easily die from it. So you have to make sure that you remove everything, and that's how you do a second trimester abortion. That's what I learned in this other video. And so I thought, wow, yeah, that's kind of not so good, ripping out parts of a baby, like an arm and then a leg and then another arm. So, but the question of the slippery slope is always, okay, where is the line? Where do you draw the line where it's no longer, you say it's basically a bunch of cells or something that you can remove without problem, and it becomes a problem. And so, because you can keep making that argument forever, you can say, well, okay, if you can do it in the second trimester, then why not in the beginning of the third? And if you can do it in the beginning of the third, then why not in the middle? And then why not in the end? And if you can have an abortion basically the day before you give birth, then why can't you abort your baby the day after you have given birth? Like, just give it a shot and it goes to sleep, or it dies. So, and if you can do that, then you see like where is the stop? And I think this is something that, like, a couple of months ago, I was on a visit in the US with a very religious family, and this is something that really troubled these people that I met there. Like this whole idea of basically what you are doing with this is you are starting to make caveats to the idea that a human life is something holy, it's something that has an innate value, and you start to make caveats. You say, yeah, it has innate value, except if it's in a uterus and less than 6 months old. or except in this case, or except in that case, or and then what they say is, of course, well, you can just keep doing that forever until the whole notion is gone. You can say, well, yeah, like some 95-year-old person who is like completely mentally gone because they have Alzheimer's and they can't recognize or talk to anyone, and they're just basically sitting in an old age home, being fed and waiting to die of a natural cause. Like, why should you keep that person around? So if you can abort a baby after it's born, then why can't you maybe just give old people that nobody wants anymore, you can just give them a shot and save yourself a whole lot of trouble. But then, and I'm not saying I want to say this, I'm saying this is a thought, that it's a legitimate thought. Why shouldn't you do that? Like, what are the pros and cons? And it's not necessarily clear that you shouldn't do it, because yeah, this is a person that is basically not conscious anymore, can't talk to anyone, nobody can talk to them, maybe nobody even comes and cares to talk to them or to see them, but still it takes resources from society to feed them and wash them and clothe them and keep them alive. And so why should you do that? It's not intrinsically obvious why you should. And then once you have made that argument, then you can say, well, what about this and what about that? What about homeless people? What about drug addicts? What about criminals in prison? What about serial pedophile rapists, like that have that don't really seem that they would change any time. And so you can just keep expanding and expanding the list of people that maybe don't have an inherent value. And of course, the horror scenario is that you end in this totalitarian nightmare state where nobody has rights and nobody has an intrinsic value just because they are a human being. And if the state wants to, then it just murders 1 million or 10 million people because they are in the way of the grand plan that the state or the dictator has. And so I think, yeah, this is the first part of my thinking is, okay, you shouldn't, an abortion is not a way of contraception. And I don't agree with the religious people that contraception is murder. I think this is I don't agree with this theory at all in the moment. I think it is kind of, I don't know, it doesn't make so much sense to me, because let's say you use a condom and then you throw the condom in the trash and they say, well, you have just hindered a life from coming into existence, and so that's murder, and so that's evil. And I have to say, no, that doesn't really work, because sperms die anyway. Like, you produce millions of sperms every day and they stay alive in your testicles for a couple of days and then they die. So it doesn't really matter if they die inside my testicles or outside of my testicles. So I don't buy that argument. But what I do see is that abortion shouldn't just be another way of contraception, because I think there is something really different. And the difference is, okay, now you have a potential human being. Like, it's a small thing that, if you don't do anything about it, will grow into a human being. And so if you want to stop it from becoming a human being, then you have to actively intervene and stop this process that would be going by itself. Like, And so that's why I think abortion is not contraception, and I think it's highly problematic that many people nowadays seem to think that an abortion is just another way of contraception, or at least they act like that. They act as if it's just another way of contraception. And yes, I kind of just feel that that's not right. So that's one thought. Now, the other thought is there might, or what are then reasons, like valid reasons to have an abortion? Because I also don't feel like saying you should never have an abortion. Maybe you shouldn't. I'm not so sure about that anymore. I used to be quite sure that there are valid reasons to have an abortion. I'm becoming less sure at the moment, but still. So one reason that I'm thinking about is if you have a screening and you will have a severely disabled child, like Down syndrome or different kinds of severe physical or mental disabilities, then at least the question arises, because everybody, of course, wishes to have strong, healthy, smart, beautiful children. Nobody, when they have a baby, imagines or dreams about having a disabled, physically or mentally disabled child. So the question arises, if you can avoid having a disabled child and basically try again and have a healthy child, then isn't that a smart thing to do? And so what I realized yesterday, and this is also a very important thought that occurred to me, maybe it is a smart thing to do, and maybe it is more convenient, and you will be happier, or you will maybe it is smart and convenient and everything, more practical for society, because you have then a member of society that can carry their own load, that can have a job and work and have an own family, instead of having a disabled member of society that you have to basically take care of for its entire life, or his or her entire life. But the thought that came to me yesterday, or that kind of crystallized itself out, is just because something is smart or convenient doesn't mean that it is right, that it is morally right to do. And so that was kind of a big set me back a little bit and made me thinking, because it is, of course, everybody wants to have a smart, healthy, beautiful child. And so if you know that you are going to have a disabled child, then if you can abort it and try again, then, because like the chance of having a disabled child is rather small, even though under certain genetical combinations it's higher than with others, but still, if probably 9 out of 10 times you won't have a disabled child. So this is at least one area of thinking where I'm not fully certain yet what I think or what is right, because that's an important one. What is right and what is convenient is not the same thing. So this is a question where I'm not convinced yet what is right, like if you have a disabled child. Now, another topic that my wife brought up, where she was uncertain if an abortion would be right or justified, is in case of rape. So because then it wasn't your choice. Like if you choose to have intercourse, then you know that there is, no matter what contraception you use, there is a certain risk of becoming pregnant. And you know that, and you willingly accepted that risk, and so then you kind of should also live with the consequences. And just saying, well, I didn't want it, doesn't seem like a valid reason to have an abortion to me, and also not to my wife. But what if it was rape? Is it then okay to have an abortion? And again, I don't really know what I think about this, if it's right or wrong, but it's an interesting question. So, and of course, one point that is sure for me is if the life of the woman is in danger, then you have to, as a physician, do everything that is necessary to save the life of the woman. And if that means ending the pregnancy artificially, then that's absolutely necessary and right, because it makes no sense to kill a 30 or whatever year old human being to potentially save a 3 months old human being, which can't even live. That just doesn't work in my head. So if the pregnancy leads to a real physical danger to the woman, then it's of prime importance to save the woman's life. I think that's my feeling. So I'm just thinking these are like the three points where I'm like, one, I'm sure, and the other two I'm not so sure about if it's morally right to have an abortion or not. And so yeah, but this video, I will put it a link in the description. I would highly recommend it, to watch it. It's very for me it was interesting. It was a sophisticated take on this whole abortion discussion, because often I feel that the discussion is not very sophisticated. It's just basically people screaming at each other like pro-life, pro-choice, pro-life, pro-choice, and doesn't really go anywhere, and there aren't really any kind of arguments or thoughts behind it. But this guy really has a sophisticated position, and he is a physician, and he did a lot of abortions himself, so he has like really decades of experience with the subject. It's not like me that doesn't have that. So yeah. Also, another interesting topic that has to be mentioned just before I wrap it up is adoptions. So, because this guy not only did abortions, but he also had a fertility problem in his marriage. So they couldn't have a baby even though they wanted to. And so they wanted to adopt a baby, and they found out that it's just about impossible to adopt a baby in the US, because there are no babies to be adopted, because they are all aborted. And so that makes the problem even more tilting towards maybe it's not ethically good, because it's, why should you end a human life if another family wishes for nothing more than to have this human life in their family, to have the ability to adopt a child, to also experience the feeling of raising a child? Like, why? That just makes even less sense and seems even more horrible. So yeah, so basically these are kind of my thoughts on abortion at the moment. I wouldn't say that they are all right, or that I'm fully I'm fully content with them. I still feel like there is work to do. So I would like to know what you think about this topic, and let me know in the comments. So thanks a lot for watching, and I hope, I'm interested how this will turn out, this new way of using YouTube. So thank you for watching. Bye.